When you get to the point where you're making millions, you think that it's going to feel a certain way. You think after making millions of dollars that you would have arrived. Spoiler alert, you're not.
What's the meaning that you're assigning to the money when that's all you're chasing? When you get up in the morning, all you think about is money. When you go to bed at night, all you're thinking about is money.
There's a sweet spot between having enough time and having enough money. A truly rich life is a life where you have enough time to enjoy the things that matter most to you.
I've worked with millionaires. I've worked with multimillionaires. And look at where they are, working 60, 70, 80 hours a week and having a team of 100 people where they don't feel free. Welcome to Coaching by the Beach, where we help you materialize the vision you have for your business, your life, your family, and the world. I'm Trevor McGregor, Master Coach.
And I'm Leesa McGregor, international best-selling author, speaker, and entrepreneur. Together, we've built an 8-figure empire, and we've broken free from the ordinary to lead lives of extraordinary freedom, impact, and fulfillment. And now we're here to guide you to do the same.
If you've been searching for more success, more wealth, and more freedom, tune in and let's embark on this journey together. Oh, yes. Welcome back to Coaching by the Beach. I'm Coach Trevor McGregor along with the gorgeous Leesa McGregor. Leesa, how are we?
Absolutely amazing.
Amazing indeed. And how fired up are you for today's podcast?
This is going to be a mind-blowing show.
Yeah, this is that show where we pull back the curtain and we talk about, something that we've coined the phrase rich beyond belief. How can you live a life that's rich beyond belief? How can you really take your life from wherever you are in your career, your finances, your health, your relationships, pick a category, but really understand and appreciate that it's really not about the money. It's not about the stuff. It's not about all that. It's really about going deeper into what we're all here to be, do, and have. And so let's start unpacking it, Leesa. Let's dive right in.
Well, here's a spoiler alert. If you're tuning into this episode because you think you're going to get rich quick, this is not the show for you. If you are tuning into this show and you want to learn how to live a truly rich life, a meaningful life, a life of passion, fulfillment, this is the episode for you.
Yeah, that's it. Because I'll tell you this again, that all the money in the world isn't going to make you rich. It's really not the money that we want anyway. It's the feeling of what the money can do. It's the feeling of the health. It's the feeling of the relationship. It's the feeling of the travel. So when we really talk about living a life that's rich beyond belief, the very first step is to kind of suspend any judgment that the word rich means money or material possessions, right?
Absolutely. And I remember thinking back to the years where we really reached some milestones around our finances, right? We were high income earners and we'd reached a level of acquiring money and making money and beyond anything we thought was possible. I mean, quite frankly, when you get to the point where you're making millions, you think that it's going to feel a certain way. You think after making millions of dollars that you would have arrived. Okay, you're at the peak and everything is rosy and life is so beautiful and you've got everything and you're happier than you ever thought you were going to be. And spoiler alert, you're not.
Yeah.
Because the fact of the matter is, the money is a vehicle. The money absolutely can contribute to an extraordinary quality of life. But as you rightly know, and as I know, sweetheart, once you get that money, that doesn't necessarily solve all your problems, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a rich life.
So let's unpack that. We really feel that a rich life is a life rich in love, a life that's rich in experiences, a life that's rich in, going on date nights, having flowers in the kitchen, taking our kids on, life-changing experiences. It's really all-encompassing, not just one or two things, but really listening to music and really embodying the, clothes you buy, not because of the price tag, but because you feel good wearing them. And so when you think of it for you, for some of the women that you coach, how do you really define and determine what's rich for them?
Well, the interesting thing about this whole idea of being rich is that it doesn't just happen once you've made millions of dollars. You don't have to get to the $10 million mark to feel rich. The fact of the matter is, you can start to feel rich today, just based on how you live your life on a daily basis. And back to the story of the flowers, that really got me thinking. It's interesting growing up. I mean, we grew up in a middle-class family, and I remember when times were tough. I remember when my parents really struggled with money, and there wasn't extra money for things. There wasn't a lot. And my mom would always talk about, waiting till payday. And there were times where it was very, very stressful. And I remember my mom saying, you know what, Leesa, even though we're struggling, even though we have these challenges.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to have non-negotiables. And one of those non-negotiables for my mom was having fresh flowers in the house. And that was one of her passions. She actually always wanted to work as a florist, funny enough. And so my mom would always have fresh flowers in the house. And I remember how that made me feel as a child. Every time we had these flowers, it just felt good. It felt inspiring. It was like we had this beautiful bouquet of flowers. And I really take my hat off to my mom because she found a way. Now, that wasn't necessarily just flowers she bought from a shop. I mean, sometimes she picked those flowers and she would create a beautiful environment at home. And that's something that I really give my mom credit for. I mean, she was always about quality over quantity. And so even though we didn't have a lot of money growing up, even though we had everything we needed, I mean, we were provided for, she always found a way to create quality in our home. It was the quality of food that we were eating. It was the quality of the clothes. I mean, my mom used to make our clothes, actually, funny enough.
Well, it's funny you bring up the food because you talk about your grandma's garden and how she had this rich belief that she wanted to provide for everybody, the aunts, the uncles, the grandchildren, all of that. And I think you probably got some of your inspiration from your grandma. True.
Absolutely. I always talk about my grandmother. She lived in the city and she had a garden that was the size of a city block. Like her backyard was a garden, right? Which really, if you think about it, it's quite sad because that generation had that. They had those gardens. And it's only until now that we're starting to reclaim these roots, this heritage. We lost it. There was a couple of generations where we lost it. The industrial age took over and people became busy, productive. We stopped having gardens, right? And I always used to think, like, how fascinating is it if you really look at the way we design our lives, right? We've got these houses with these manicured lawns and we put all this like stuff on our lawns to make them look really pretty and nice. But at the end of the day, we could be growing food forests in our lawns, in our gardens. We could be sharing food with our neighbors. Like, what happened to that? What happened to those days where we actually had that food? And what's so ironic is that we go to the place, like when I think back to Grandma's garden, that was the happy place. It was the summertime where we could pick the peas and the strawberries and the tomatoes and the cucumbers, and that was what we ate. And I remember the time when we actually went to this fancy restaurant. I'll never forget. Trevor and I were sitting there, and it's a place called The Farm, and it's this sustainable farm to table food. There's a beautiful restaurant. It's fine dining. And then there's actually the farm right there. It's farm to table.
Yep.
And it was so interesting because I remember we sat down to have dinner and all of a sudden I started crying and Trevor's looking at me and he's like, why is she crying?
I remember that.
And I'm sitting there and I'm having a moment because I'm saying to him, I said, can you believe how far removed we are from what food actually tastes like? This food reminds me of Grandma's garden. And it was like the taste of the potatoes, the taste of the peas. That brought me right back.
Yeah. And I see you tearing up there. So why have we become so far removed? You talk about being far removed from living that rich life. Why is that?
Well, again, I think we have to question where we're living, this time in history that we're living through, like this technological advancement. I mean, technology was supposed to provide us with a better life. And yet we've got these challenges. We've got, our food system has, the soil has been depleted, like all of these things. And so when it comes back to rich life, I mean, this is something that we've really reclaimed for ourselves. We went, okay, wait a minute. This busy modern world, this lifestyle that we live in where we can just push a button and get Uber Eats. Sometimes that has a place, but other times it doesn't, because where are we getting our nutrition from? Where are we getting that quality of food? And so one of the things we decided once we started to have the financial resources, we just said to ourselves, we're never going to put a budget on food.
Right.
We're never going to put a budget on quality of food. And that's something that we feel very passionate about. I mean, when we have dinner parties now, it's like we go to the local farmer. We get beautiful, regenerative farm food, like sustainable, organic. Like we're trying to support the local farmers and eat as clean as humanly possible. And that goes back to what we're talking about, the rich life,
That's
you know?
it.
And I think this is, maybe we can talk a little bit about just where you've seen a lot of your clients arrive. You get to this point, like Trevor, you've worked with hundreds, if not thousands of high net worth people. We're talking high net worth. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. And at the same time, what's happening behind the scenes? What's happening behind the scenes of this rich life, this $100 million net worth kind of experience.
Well, I think it's important to realize that, money is just a scorecard, right? If you're adding value, money becomes the byproduct of that value. And the more value you add and the more money you make, you put more points on the board. But then you've got to start asking yourself, where does it become ridiculous, right? And again, I've worked with millionaires, I've worked with multimillionaires, I've worked with 2 billionaires. And not to say that, it's good or bad or right or wrong, but what's the meaning that you're assigning it to the money when that's all you're chasing? When you get up in the morning, all you think about is money. When you go to bed at night, all you're thinking about is money. And how can you get your money to make more money? Well, that's okay. But there's a whole set of life out there that I think a lot of my clients that have achieved wealth have missed out on living that rich life. Really, when you think about it, and sometimes I'll take them back to when they were just a little boy or a little girl. And I'll say, what was a time in your life that you felt rich or felt, unstoppable or felt that you could do anything? And more than on one hand, I could count the number of times people would say it was when I was riding my bike as an 8-year-old boy and I felt free and I would create these jumps and go over these hills and these mounds. And that's a sign that freedom was important. And now they look at where they are, working 60, 70, 80 hours a week and having a team of, 100 people where they don't feel free. They don't feel like they're on their bike with the wind going through their hair and them being able to go out there and do the things that they'd rather be doing. For some, it might be sailing. For some, it might be, going hiking. For some, it might be hang gliding or scuba diving. I know we've been crazy enough to do some of those things ourselves, whether we've been diving on the Great Barrier Reef, which is pretty cool, or jumping out of airplanes as we both done some skydiving.
That actually reminds me. I mean, we were just recently in Bali and we met the most interesting guy. He was this world famous DJ. And he was telling us the story about his rich life and how he realized that society had sold him this fake bill of goods, which was that once he had all this money, he was going to be happy. He was going to be fulfilled, And this guy, just to kind of put this into context, he's one of the most famous DJs in the world.
Yes.
He's worked with some of the most legendary music artists in the world. And
Yes.
we're going to keep him confidential because we're going to share a little bit about his story. But he was talking about how he had achieved that level of wealth. He'd had all the investment properties. He had all this money, all the cars. He had everything. He had the sound systems. He had the state-of-the-art sound systems. And he got to a point where he realized that he was stressed out every single day of his life because his stuff started to own him.
Right.
So instead of him owning the stuff, his stuff owned him.
Yep.
And he realized that it was a level of insanity that he'd created in his life because his life got really complex. All of a sudden he had assets in all these different locations and things that he had to manage. And he realized that that wasn't the life that he wanted. And he went down this journey of unraveling it and
Yep.
saying, okay, what do I need to let go of here? And at the point that we ended up having this conversation, he's like, look, I'm proud to say, I've sold off most of my stuff. I want to live free. And for him, a rich life was not being chained to these assets. It was just being chained to managing these assets. And I think this is a bit of a challenge. I mean, we go for these material things, and I'm not saying material things are bad, but I would also question, is the materiality the only thing? Is that really what a rich life is about? I mean,
Well, I love that because he went on to also talk about a rich life for him, after climbing the mountain of success and then coming down the other side and then up another mountain and then down the other side, was also the fact that time waits for no one. And he really wanted to leave a legacy, right? And having a rich life is really thinking about, all right, how do you want to spend maybe chapter 2 of your life and not just chase the stuff, but really, give someone else a leg up or give somebody else an opportunity to step into what's maybe a greater life for them. Do you want to share a little bit more on how legacy was so important to him and then how you and I got into it for ourselves in a good way?
Absolutely. I think this is a really important piece to talk about. And that is that so many of us find ourselves in that place. Once you've made the money, now it may not be hundreds of millions of dollars, but once you've made a certain amount of money and you've got the financial resources, you're taking care of your basic needs, you really start to think about that. What is the contribution?
Yep.
And I'll never forget the quote, the secret to living is giving. And the truth is, I really believe that our greatest source of happiness comes from when we are in service to contribution that's something greater than ourselves. And that's not about being totally altruistic. I think it's a balance. It's the hedonism and the altruism. You've got to have a balance. You can't just be completely self-indulgent because you can have all the toys, all the money, all the cars, everything. And really, you're fooling yourself. I really cannot, I've never met a person that's had all the stuff that's been truly happy. The people that I've met that are the happiest are the ones that have found a way to contribute, to give to others. The secret to living is giving. And so that's the thing that we're really passionate about. And I think it also goes back to like really questioning, what does a rich life look like for you? So on a daily basis, what does that look like? Like for us, a rich life is spending time every
Quality
weekend
time.
in nature. We spend time in nature. I mean, we hang out at the beach. We're going for a swim in the ocean. We're in the pool. We've got our feet in the sand.
We ground.
We earthing is such an important part of our routine, right?
Yeah.
Like we need to feel connected to nature. And I really have a philosophy around that, which is that when we're connected to nature, we are truly connected to our true nature. And when we're connected to our true nature, then we're connected to ourselves. And when we're connected to ourselves, we're connected to each other.
So good.
And so there's this whole symbiotic relationship. And I believe that that's why we feel so good when we're in nature, because we are nature. And so a rich life for me is this. It's spending time in beautiful environments that inspire us.
Yeah.
And, it's not about, for me, it's not about having a Louis Vuitton handbag. In fact, I remember back when we started to make big money, and it was like, I guess I should be going to the spa every other day. I guess I should have like 10 Louis Vuitton handbags. I guess I should have all these things. But for some reason, my heart was saying, no, that's not really what it's about for you, Lisa. Like, that's not what it's about. We figured out that it's a sweet spot. There's a sweet spot between having enough time and having enough money. And I will say that a truly rich life is a life where you have enough time to enjoy your life. You have enough time to enjoy the things that matter most to you. And we've reached a level where, we've talked about this in previous episodes, that ultimate level of freedom where you get to decide how much you want to work, how much you want to travel, how much you want to play, how much you want to have fun, how much time you want to spend with your family. And that is the thing that we're most proud of is the fact that we've designed a life where we get to call the shots. We get to design life. We've designed life living on our terms. And so a rich life to us is about a life that is rich in meaningful life experiences, in connection, in joy. We had a dinner party this weekend with some of our best friends.
Oh, yes.
And it was off the charts.
Yeah.
I mean, we could have been flying off into the stratosphere. We were having so much fun. We were laughing one minute. We're crying the next minute.
Yeah.
We're laughing the next minute. And the conversation is so exquisite that we didn't want it to end. Like, it was just like, give me more,
What was that, 7 hours?
It was like, I don't
The
even
old
know.
7-hour dinner party. But yeah, absolutely. And it was really, again, something where when you get around like-minded people, and these people are truly great friends, not just the people that you want to have over for dinner and then, you can't wait till they leave. It would have been like they can stay the dinner, the dessert, after dessert drinks, and then they actually stayed over in our guest room. And we just, again, picked up right in the morning when we had that beautiful breakfast that you made. Thank you very much. Exactly where we left off. And it really became back to, that conversation around building that legacy, list of living that rich life where, we talked about it being a lot like a table, where the top of the table represents living a rich life and the legs underneath the table represent the references to that rich life, right? So I'll say that again for the listener. If you could imagine the top of a table, that represents living a rich life, and the legs are the references that hold up the table. So if you really look at leg number one, and it is like we have fresh flowers in the house, that's a beautiful leg under the table. You go to table leg number two. We play music in our house. I know, Lisa, you're as big of a music lover as I am, and we'll often, play music rather than put on the TV. The third table leg is having organic food. The fourth table leg is having date night. The fifth one is, having, humorous sessions with our 3 children. And we've created a table where there aren't just 4 legs underneath it. There's 5, 6, 8, 10, 15, 20, 30. Imagine what life looks like in a rich life when you have 50 legs underneath your rich life table. And I love talking about that on coaching sessions, when we're doing retreats by the beach, when we're having dinner parties. And I know that you've really unleashed that for yourself as well.
That's so great that you share that, the 50 references, to living a rich life. It's so funny because not long ago, I actually I did a little bit of research, and I was like, what are the bucket list experiences for families? And this is an interesting conversation because I thought to myself, you get to a point in life and you're like, have I really lived my bucket list? And most people just keep the bucket list on the bucket list. And I've been saying for a while now, like, how can you move your bucket list onto your to-do list? How can you really make
I
it
love
happen?
that.
And that's something that we've been talking about this last 2 years. I mean, we've ticked off the bucket list ideas, the things that we wanted to do, the things that were once a wild idea. And that's like for us, the rich life is not just about, again, it's not lifestyles of the rich and famous for us. It's about the experiences.
Yes.
And, I remember back when I was a young girl, I wanted to be an actress. And whether or not I'm, asking my son, living vicariously through my son, I got this idea that how cool would it be if I could take Max on an experience where he got to go and perform on a stage. And so I started doing a little bit of research. I was looking at these bucket list experiences, and one of the bucket list experiences was perform in a theater in London. And I thought, how amazing would that be if we could take our son on an experience where he got to perform on a stage in London?
Yeah.
And so I did some research, and sure enough, I find this camp. And this camp is basically teaching children how to perform on a West End stage.
That's just a little different than the old elementary school stage, isn't it?
So I said, how cool would that be if we could take our son around the world and have this experience? Now, it happened to work out. We had some business that we were going to do in London. So we're like, let's make it happen.
Yeah.
And so that's just an idea, an example of what's possible. Like why is it that we never get to our bucket list? We've got to make it happen. That's where the rich life really begins. It's like those quality experiences. And I know for women too, this is a really big one. I think sometimes women, we can get wrapped up in the rich life, again, is about the shoes or the handbags or whatever it is. But I really challenge you to think even bigger about that. Like what else does it look like? Like for me, it's like sharing a beautiful, nourishing meal with people I care about. That's a rich life.
Yeah.
I know for myself, even when it comes to fashion, I made a decision that I didn't want to support corporations anymore. I made a decision that I wanted to support artists. So now when I buy clothes, it's very rarely that I will go to just a regular mainstream store. I want to support artists, and I feel very
Absolutely.
blessed because we live in a place where it's a very creative place where we live, and there's all of these designer artists that have created clothing lines. And, it's funny because I used to buy things and it's just like it was just become part of buying things. And now it's like every time I buy something, I'm so lit up because I've supported an artist. I've supported something else with their dream, their desire to create something for the world. And so, this dress is a perfect example. It's like it was a local artist. I thought, how cool is this? I've got to support her work. And so that to me is a rich life. I feel proud that I'm wearing something that was created by someone else, another creator. And so rich life can take so many different forms. And so really, I encourage our listeners today, ask yourself that question. What does a rich life really look like for you beyond the money? What does it look like beyond the money, beyond
That's
the
so good.
finances?
And I must say, you look ravishing. You look amazing.
Thank you.
You look beautiful, as always. And I also want to stack on there that, it starts with a place of gratitude, right? We often say, and we often heard that gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership. And that means that when you're grateful for all those rich experiences, guess what you invite more into your life? More rich experiences. And I know we've talked about that ad nauseum. We also talk about, forgiving yourself for maybe not pursuing your bucket list yet, but then putting it on the calendar, creating an action, right? Talking to your significant other about it. Or maybe, even sitting down with your kids instead of saying, how was your day at school? And they go, it was good, right? You say, hey, what's something that you've always wanted to do, right? And you almost do a goal-setting, exercise with your family where instead of calling it a goal-setting exercise, you and I call it a wouldn't it be cool if exercise. Wouldn't it be cool if we could get in a helicopter and fly over an active volcano, right?
Which we did.
Wouldn't it be cool if we could go out there and again, with a group of like-minded people, rent a yacht in, Mexico, where we literally had a captain, a chef, a bartender, and we got to go float out there in the ocean for hour after hour.
It was amazing.
Absolutely amazing. So masterminds, all of those things can really, really spearhead a lot of those things to get you off the couch, out of the office, and out there traveling what we call this beautiful blue planet. 75% of it is covered by blue ocean water, and it's really part and parcel of what we've said is going to yield a rich life. We're going to create this legacy. We're going to have experiences by going out there and seeing it. So what an outstanding episode. And I know we're going to get into our 3 to Thrive because at the end of every show, we like to ask 3 thought-provoking questions. And so as we get ready to really dive into that, I'll throw it over to you. What's the very first question you'd like our listener to ask themselves?
What does a rich life mean to you beyond money? What would it take to live a rich life, and start to think about all dimensions, all aspects of your life? How would you dress if you were rich? What would you feel if you were rich? Start to ask yourself those questions. Get into the feelings of rich, the feelings of
So
rich.
good.
It's like the feelings that you have when you have this beautiful home that's been designed exactly the way you want it. Now, again, it might not be your dream home right now, but how can you make your home as good as it can possibly be? How can you design it in such a way that it feels rich, it feels luxurious?
I love that. And that takes us to question number 2, which is a question around, instead of saying, what do we want or what are our goals, really approach it as the question, wouldn't it be cool if? And do some of that for yourself. Wouldn't it be cool if we had fresh flowers in the kitchen tomorrow? Wouldn't it be cool if we went out with another couple and had a night like Trevor and Leesa had the other night? Wouldn't it be cool if we could take our kids to see something, whether it's a staycation or you take them halfway around the world? Wouldn't it be cool if is a whole new paradigm that gets the brain moving towards something that can be absolutely remarkable?
And I guess a third question could go back to finances, and just ask yourself the question, like, what is that number for you? Like, what is that financial freedom number? Do you have a number in mind? And that could be anything. That could be a net worth. It could be passive income. It could be active income. Like, what is it? And a lot of people focus on the active income. But I would really encourage you to think about all aspects of wealth, like what, and we'll be talking about this in future episodes. We do promise you we're going to have some shows on money, but we really want you to think about like using money as the vehicle for living a rich life. So what does that financial freedom number look like? Write it down, just start to think about those things. And then what would you do with the money? Because money will flow where there's a purpose.
Right.
So if you need money for your business, if you need money for your family, whatever it is, write it down, because the money will come to you faster if it has a purpose, if it has a place to flow.
That's it. Money is energy, just like everything else. And so I think that's wise advice. And Leesa, again, this has been another phenomenal episode. I think we're going to get a lot of likes, a lot of loves, a lot of DMs, a lot of comments. But really, we want you to really live your best life. And it's almost like you were going to the beach and you could be in the sand, the surf, the waves, going up and down and really having an amazing journey. We want that for you. So Leesa, as we get ready to wrap,
peace, love, and palm trees. Thank you for joining us today at Coaching by the Beach. If this episode helps you to see your path to more success, more wealth, freedom, and fulfillment, we'd love your support.
Remember to subscribe on your favorite platform.
Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
And don't let your journey stop here. Connect with us in our community of like-minded achievers on all social platforms at Coaching by the Beach.
We're excited to continue exploring this path to freedom with you.